Welcome, everyone, to Complete Aviation Solutions Deep Dive number 71.
Good to be here.
Today, we're going to tackle something that's, well, brewing in commercial aviation. It's a potential trade issue, really, between the U.S. and Europe.
That's right. Specifically concerning aircraft tariffs.
Exactly. We'll be looking at some recent statements from a key figure and sort of digging into what might happen next.
Yeah, the core of it is this current 10% U.S. tariff on new Airbus planes coming in. And the big question really is, will negotiations get rid of it, or are we looking at, things escalating?
Right. So our deep dive today is going to explore those potential consequences if the talks don't succeed.
Mm-hmm. Especially the idea of Europe maybe hitting back with its own tariffs on, say, Boeing aircraft.
And how all of this could shake out for the airlines and, their big orders for new planes.
Definitely.
Okay, so let's jump into it. The Airbus CEO, Guillaume Faury, he was speaking, I think it was May 6th, at a media event.
Yeah, organized by Guy Fuss, the French aerospace industry group.
Right, and he basically said Europe should think about putting tariffs on Boeing imports if the U.S. keeps this 10% tariff on the Airbus aircraft. That sounds, well, pretty direct.
It does. It's quite a statement. He did say they're hoping for a positive result from the talks with the U.S., on that baseline 10% tariff.
Okay, so there's some optimism.
Some, yes. But then he suggested, and this is the key part, that if they don't reach an agreement, reciprocal tariffs on aircrafts will be imposed to force a higher level of negotiation.
Wow. Reciprocal tariffs, that really frames it as a potential tit-for-tat situation.
Absolutely. It suggests they're ready to use countermeasures. Really ups the ante in this whole thing.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, is that partly a negotiating tactic itself? Saying it publicly like that?
Could well be. It certainly puts pressure on the talks.
Yeah.
And we should probably remember, this isn't entirely out of the blue, is it?
No, that's a good point. The previous U.S. administration under President Trump had actually floated a much higher tariff, like 20%.
That's right, yeah, on EU imports generally. But that specific plan is currently suspended while these negotiations are ongoing.
Right. Okay. So the current 10% is the live issue. Now, thinking about how these tariffs actually affect Airbus, it's not straightforward, is it? Because they build some planes in the U.S.
Correct. They have facilities in the U.S., Mobile, Alabama, primarily for the A220 and some A320 family jets.
But they're big ones, the wide bodies.
Those are mainly built in Europe,
Mm.
Toulouse, Hamburg. So those would be the ones directly hit by an import tariff coming into the U.S.
Okay, that distinction is pretty important then.
Very. And if you look at the order books, U.S. airlines have a lot of those European-built wide bodies on order.
Yeah, I saw the numbers. Delta Airlines, for instance, they've got orders for, what, 6 A330-900 NEOs?
20 A350-1000s and 8 A350-900s as well.
And United Airlines isn't small either. 45 A350-900s on their list.
Exactly. So these aren't small numbers. We're talking major fleet investments.
And adding a 10% tariff onto the price tag for those, well, that significantly changes the economics for the airlines, doesn't it?
Hugely. It's a massive potential cost increase.
And we've actually heard from airlines on this. Delta's CEO, Ed Bastian, he was pretty clear about it before, wasn't he?
So it was. He basically said Delta would not pay tariffs on aircraft.
Not pay them. Wow.
Yeah, and that they'd be willing to forego deliveries if it came down to it.
That's a serious stance. It shows just how disruptive these tariffs could be, not just financially, but actually impacting airline operations and their fleet renewal plans.
Definitely. Imagine delaying getting those newer, more fuel-efficient planes. It throws a wrench in the works, and you have to think other airlines might feel similarly.
It does make you wonder about the leverage the big airline customers have here.
It's significant, potentially. Delaying or canceling orders. That sends a strong message to both the manufacturers and maybe even the governments involved.
Now, something else the Airbus CEO mentioned, which I thought was interesting, even the planes they build in the U.S., the A220s and A320s, they aren't totally clear of this.
Right, because of the supply chain. It's global.
Mm.
Those planes might be assembled in Alabama, but lots of the parts, the components, they're imported from other countries before assembly.
Ah, I see. So tariffs could hit those imported parts too.
That's what he implied. He said, and I'm quoting roughly here, our imports to the U.S. from other countries are also penalized.
Okay, so it's complex. Final assembly location isn't the whole story. It's this web of components moving around the globe.
Precisely. It shows how tangled these trade policies can get, even for domestic production.
And meanwhile, across the Atlantic, it sounds like the EU is getting ready just in case things don't go well.
Yes, reports suggest they've prepared a pretty substantial package of potential tariffs targeting the U.S.
How substantial are we talking?
The figure mentioned is around EUR 110 billion euros.
Wow. That's what, about USD, $125 billion?
Yeah, roughly, yeah.
Hmm.
It's a very significant amount. It signals they're taking this very seriously and are prepared to retaliate quite strongly if the U.S. doesn't back down on the existing tariffs.
So that idea of reciprocal tariffs the Airbus CEO mentioned, it seems less like just talk and more like a concrete plan B is being developed.
It certainly seems that way. The groundwork appears to be laid for potential escalation from the EU side, too.
Okay, so let's try and bring this together for you listening. What does it all really mean?
Well, it really puts a spotlight on just how connected international trade, aerospace manufacturing, and airline operations are. It's a complex system.
And these potential tariffs, whether they stay or new ones appear, they could really ripple through that system, couldn't they?
Absolutely. You could see it impacting the cost of new planes, obviously. That could hit airline profits.
And maybe eventually that could filter down to things like airfares, or at least affect how quickly airlines can bring in those modern, quieter, greener jets.
It's certainly possible. It affects fleet modernization strategies for sure.
And those comments from the Airbus CEO really underline that the stakes are high. And, well, there's a clear willingness to consider hitting back if needed.
Yeah, it shows this isn't just a background negotiation. It's active, and key players are thinking about countermeasures. It could genuinely disrupt the whole aviation ecosystem.
So it leaves us with a pretty big question, doesn't it? If this tariff dispute does escalate, what's the ultimate impact going to be? Not just for aviation, but maybe even for the wider global economy.
That's the key unknown. It's definitely a situation worth keeping a very close eye on as these negotiations continue.
Agreed. Definitely one to watch.